Hello, I'm Eli. I'm 24, selling handmade pottery at a small shop just outside Asheville. It's nothing grand, just a cozy little place with clay dust on the floor and shelves crammed with mugs, vases, and bowls I've shaped myself. I like the work. It's steady, quiet, and my hands are always busy. I rent a weathered cabin a few blocks from the shop. Nothing fancy, paint flaking, porch boards groaning underfoot, but it's home. Most days I'm either at the shop or helping neighbors with small things. Hanging shelves, fixing fences, planting flowers for Mrs. Carter down the road. I never ask for anything in return. It just feels right. People say I've got the kind of smile that makes them relax, which might be why no one minds when I wander into their yards to help. I don't spend much time thinking about love or the future. All I want is to keep making things, maybe open my own studio someday. That's enough for now. A few houses down across the street lives Marin. My neighbor. Early 40s, I think. We don't know each other well, just enough to exchange a nod or a quick morning when we pass. She's beautiful in a quiet, unshowy way. Long chestnut hair, usually tied loose, and she wears these flowing bohemian dresses that catch the breeze. She's often on her porch, either reading with a steaming mug beside her or moving through yoga poses with an easy grace. But there's a heaviness in her eyes as if she's carrying something no one else can see. Word is she's divorced, used to teach yoga in Nashville, classes that filled up fast, but now she keeps to herself. I've caught her glancing my way a few times, but our exchanges never went past the usual greetings. That changed one chilly Saturday morning in late November. I was sweeping my porch when I saw her wrestling with a tall wicker lantern stand. The thing was tangled in an old rope, wobbling under the weight of the glass lantern she'd hung from it. She was muttering under her breath, hair slipping from its bun. I leaned my broom against the railing and walked over. "Need a hand?" I called, keeping my tone light so I didn't startle her. Marin looked up, a little surprised, then smiled. Not a big smile, just enough to let me know she wasn't annoyed. "If you're offering, I won't say no. This thing's been fighting me all morning." I crouched beside her, working the rope loose while she held the stand steady. 10 minutes later, the lantern swayed gently in the cold light. "Looks good now," I said, wiping my hands on my jeans. "You're a lifesaver, Eli," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I owe you one. Coffee? Or I've got lemonade in the fridge." "Lemonade sounds great," I said, mostly because I didn't want to just walk away. Her porch smelled faintly of jasmine, and there was something about the way she moved, graceful, but like she was holding herself together with care. Inside, her home was warm and inviting. Soft cushions, shelves of books, vases of fresh flowers. She poured 2 glasses of lemonade and we sat at her kitchen table. She told me she was baking cookies for a holiday fair in the next town, a big deal with artisan stalls and food vendors. "I used to run a bakery," she said almost casually. "Now I just bake for fun. Problem is, my car's acting up and I'm not sure I can get the cookies there." I didn't think twice. "I'm heading to the fair anyway, dropping off some pottery. I can drive you. Got a truck big enough for both." Her eyes widened, like she wasn't used to people offering help without strings. "You sure? It's a bit of a drive." "No trouble at all," I said with a grin. "Besides, I could use some of those cookies as payment." She laughed, a soft, genuine sound, and I realized it might be rare for her. "Deal," she said. The next morning we loaded my truck, her boxes of cookies stacked neatly in back, my pottery crates tied down beside them. The drive was about an hour through winding roads lined with pines and frosted fields. Marin was quiet at first, but soon we were talking about everything from old movies to the best kind of pie to how she missed teaching yoga, but not the city. I told her about wanting my own studio someday, maybe a place where I could teach kids to throw clay. It was easy conversation, the kind that feels like you've known someone longer than you really have. We were maybe 10 minutes from the fair when we rolled into the town square and saw the mess. People were milling around, vendors packing up, and a guy with a clipboard was shouting over the noise about a power outage. "Whole grid's down," he told us as we pulled up. "Fair's canceled. No lights, no heat, nothing. Try again tomorrow, if we get it fixed." Marin's face fell. "All these cookies," she muttered, staring at the boxes in the back. I should have known. "Hey, it's just one day," I said, trying to keep her spirits up. "We'll come back tomorrow?" She nodded, but her shoulders slumped. It was already getting dark, and the roads back to Asheville weren't great at night, especially with the cold settling in. "We could find somewhere nearby to crash," I suggested. "Better than driving back in this." Marin hesitated, then sighed. "All right, but you're picking the place. I'm useless with directions." We found a small roadside inn just off the highway, A squat building with a flickering vacancy sign and a cedar-scented lobby that also smelled faintly of old carpet. The woman at the desk looked frazzled. "You're in luck," she said. Then she paused. "Well, sort of. We've got one room left. One bed. Double. That okay?" I glanced at Marin, feeling my face heat. She looked just as caught off guard, her eyes widening. Any other options?" I asked, rubbing the back of my neck. "Maybe a cot or something?" "Nope," the woman said, shaking her head. "We're booked solid. Fair folks took everything else. You could try the next town, but it's 30 miles. Marin bit her lip, then shrugged. "We'll take it. We're adults. We can handle it." I nodded, trying to play it cool even though my stomach was doing flips. The woman handed us the key and we grabbed our bags. Mine a beat-up duffel, hers a canvas tote with a faded flower print. The room was on the second floor, warm but small, with a creaky wooden floor and a double bed under a loud floral comforter. "One bed," I said, setting my bag down. "Cozy." Marin laughed, a little nervous, and dropped her tote on the single chair by the window. "That's one way to put it." She glanced at the bed, then back at me. "You're not sleeping on the floor, Eli. I'd feel awful." "Chair's fine," I said, pointing at the rickety thing in the corner. "I've slept in worse." "No," she said firmly, arms crossing. "We're splitting the bed. It's big enough. We'll just stay on our own sides." I grinned. "You take the left, I'll take the right. Fair?" "Fair," she said, her smile softening. "But we're building a wall of pillows. No crossing the border." "Deal?" I said, laughing. We pulled every pillow from the bed and stacked them in the middle like we were building a fort. It was ridiculous, but it broke the tension. I caught her smiling, really smiling, and it struck me again how beautiful she was when she let herself relax. We stood there, looking at the pillow barricade under the dim golden light of the bedside lamp. "I didn't expect to be stuck with the pottery guy like this," she teased. "And I didn't expect to be sharing a bed with my neighbor," I shot back, grinning. "Guess we're both in for a surprise." She laughed again, softer this time, and started unpacking a sweater from her bag. I did the same, trying not to think too much about what the night might mean. We were just two people in an odd situation, making the best of it. But as she pulled the sweater over her dress, I couldn't shake the feeling something was beginning, something I wasn't ready to name. The room was quiet except for the ceiling fan's slow, creaky hum. We lay on opposite sides of the bed, the pillow wall between us, the floral comforter scratching against my arms. The warm lamplight threw long shadows on the walls, making the space feel smaller, cozier, and a whole lot more complicated than I'd expected. I stared at the ceiling, trying to act like this was no big deal, like sharing a bed with my neighbor wasn't sending my thoughts into a tailspin. Marin shifted slightly, the mattress dipping under her weight, and I could tell she wasn't asleep either. "This is weird, right?" I said, breaking the silence a little louder than I'd meant to. She let out a soft, nervous laugh. "Very weird. I haven't shared a bed with anyone in, well, a long time." "Same," I said, grinning. "Though I'm pretty sure my last bunkmate was my cousin at a family reunion." He snored. "You don't snore, do you?" "Not that I know of," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "But if I do, you're welcome to take the chair." "Oh, no way," I said, rolling onto my side to face the pillow wall. "You fought for me to stay in this bed. No takebacks." She chuckled again, and the sound loosened something in my chest. "Fine, Eli. But if you hog the blanket, we're going to have words." "Deal?" I said, laughing. I reached for the radio on the nightstand, figuring a little background noise might help. It crackled to life with an old acoustic song. Slow guitar, lyrics dripping with talk of love and open roads. "Oh man," I said, "this is straight out of a cheesy rom-com." Marin snorted, a completely unpolished sound that caught me off guard. "What, you don't believe in love under the starry skies?" she teased, mimicking the singer's drawl. "Not when it comes with a guitar solo like that," I shot back. We both laughed, and for a moment, it didn't feel like we were two near strangers stuck in a roadside inn. It felt like we were just us. We tried to settle down, but sleep wasn't happening. The fan kept creaking, and every time one of us moved, the mattress squeaked like it was mocking us. I sat up, grabbing the glass of water from the nightstand. "Want some?" I asked, holding it over the pillow wall. "Sure," Marin said, sitting up too. I leaned to hand it to her, and knocked my elbow into the glass. Water splashed across the bed, soaking the middle of our so-called boundary. "Oh crap," I said, jumping up. "I'm sorry, I'm such a klutz." Marin burst out laughing, clutching her stomach. "Eli, you're a disaster," she said, but there was no bite in it. "Now we've got a wet bed to deal with." Great, I groaned, grabbing a towel from the bathroom. First I get us stuck here, now I'm flooding the place. She waved it off, still giggling as we blotted the comforter. It's fine. We'll just shift over. You take the dry side. No way, you get the dry side, I said, tossing the towel aside. I made the mess. I'll deal with it. She crossed her arms, giving me a look that was half amused, half stubborn. Eli, we're adults. We can share the dry side. Stop trying to be a hero. I held up my hands. All right. Truce. But if I roll into the wet spot, it's on you. We shifted to the drier half of the bed, our space now even smaller. I was hyper-aware of how close she was, her shoulder brushing the pillow wall as she settled in. The radio was still playing, but the song had slowed into something softer, almost tender. I switched it off, figuring silence might be better. But the quiet felt heavier. Guess we're not sleeping yet, Marin said, her voice softer now, almost careful. Guess not, I murmured, staring at the ceiling again. You ever just lie awake and think about stuff? She asked. All the time, I said. What's on your mind? She hesitated, then, you first. I don't usually open up to people, but something about the dark, the creaky fan, and the weirdness of this night made it easier. I don't know, just life, I guess. Growing up, I was on my own a lot. My parents passed when I was a kid. I got used to figuring things out, you know? But sometimes I wonder if I'm doing it right. She was quiet for a moment, then rolled slightly toward me, her eyes catching the faint glow from the lamp. I get that. I used to think I had everything figured out, married, running a successful yoga studio, the whole deal. Then my husband decided I was too old to keep up with his plans. Left me for someone half my age. Her voice was steady, but there was a crack in it, like she was still piecing herself back together. That's rough, I said, not sure what else to say. Sounds like he was the one who didn't get it. She let out a small, bitter laugh. Maybe I just stopped believing in a lot of things after that. Like I wasn't enough anymore. You're enough, I said before I could stop myself. My face warmed, but I didn't take it back. I mean, you're out here baking cookies, teaching yoga in your head, living your life. That's more than enough. She turned fully toward me now, propping herself on one elbow, the pillow wall shifting slightly. You're sweet, Eli. You don't even know me that well. I know you make killer lemonade, I said, grinning to lighten the mood. And you've got that jasmine scent all over your porch. That's enough for me to know you're not just sitting still. She smiled, a real one, her eyes softening. You notice a lot, don't you? Only the good stuff, I said, and we both laughed, the tension easing again. We kept talking, the kind of conversation that feels like it's been waiting to happen. She told me about her yoga days, how alive she used to feel leading classes, how she missed it but wasn't sure if she could go back. I told her about the first bowl I ever made, how it cracked in the kiln but I kept it anyway, a reminder that messing up isn't the end. We talked about dumb stuff too, favorite sandwiches, worst movies we'd ever seen. It was easy, like we'd been friends for years. At some point, I reached to adjust the blanket and my hand brushed hers. Neither of us pulled away. The touch lingered just a second, but it was enough to make my heart skip. I glanced at her. She was looking at me, eyes wide, like she felt it too. We both froze, the air thick with something unspoken. Sorry, I mumbled, pulling my hand back. It's okay, she said quickly, voice barely above a whisper. She tucked her hand under the blanket like she was steadying herself. We went quiet again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that holds more than words ever could. You know, she said after a while, it's been a long time since I talked to someone like this. Just talked. Same, I said, voice low. So, let's keep talking, Marin. No rush. She smiled, barely visible in the dim light. No rush, she echoed. We lay there, the pillow wall still between us, the fan creaking above. Marin's breathing slowed and I thought she might be drifting off, but then she spoke again, soft and steady. Thank you for coming with me today, Eli. For this. I turned my head, catching the outline of her face. Thank you for not letting me sleep in that chair. She laughed, a quiet, warm sound that made the room feel less small. We didn't say anything else, just lay there. The space between us felt less like a boundary and more like a bridge we weren't ready to cross yet. My heart was still racing and I knew hers was too. The night stretched on and I couldn't shake the feeling that this, whatever it was only just beginning. When I woke, birds were chirping outside the window, and the faint morning light sneaked through the curtains. My eyes adjusted to the room and I noticed the pillow wall between Marin and me was a mess. Pillows scattered everywhere, one on the floor, another squished under my arm. We drifted closer during the night, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth coming from her side of the bed. My heart jumped and I froze, not wanting to wake her. Marin was still asleep, hair fanned across the pillow, one hand tucked under her cheek. She looked peaceful, softer than I'd ever seen her, as if the weight she always carried was gone, if only for a moment. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could, my socks silent on the dusty floor. The fan was still whining above, and the air smelled like old wood and Marin's jasmine perfume. I grabbed my phone and saw a text from the fair organizer. The power was back and the fair was rescheduled for today. I let out a small breath of relief. At least we wouldn't have to haul everything back home. Marin stirred, blinking slowly as she sat up. "Morning," she said, voice groggy. Then she noticed the pillows, or rather, the lack of them, and her cheeks flushed. "Oh, guess our boarder didn't hold up." I grinned, trying to keep things light. "Yeah, it looks like we staged a pillow rebellion in our sleep." She laughed, rubbing her eyes. "I hope I didn't snore." "Nah, you're good," I said. "Though I wouldn't have cared if you did. The fair's back on today. Power's fixed." Her face brightened, but there was a flicker of something else, maybe nerves about what the day might bring. "Good." I was worried about those cookies going to waste. We got ready in a kind of awkward dance, taking turns in the tiny bathroom, passing each other with quick smiles. I pulled on my flannel and jeans. She slipped into a flowy dress, her hair tied back in a loose braid. We didn't talk about last night the way we talked for hours, or how our hands had brushed. It hung there unspoken, like a secret we weren't quite ready to name. The inn had a small diner attached, all checkered tablecloths and the smell of bacon. We slid into a booth, ordered coffee and toast, and split a plate of pancakes because Marin said, "Life's too short for bad breakfasts." She cut into the pancakes with precision, like she was measuring every bite, and I couldn't help but tease her. "You always eat like you're solving a puzzle," I said, grinning as I slathered butter on my toast. She raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at her lips. "And you always eat like you're racing the clock." "Touché," I laughed. We fell into easy banter, talking about the fair, what we'd do with our stalls, how I'd probably knock over a vase if I wasn't careful. It felt natural, like last night had cracked something open between us. After breakfast, we decided to kill time before the fair opened. The town was small, with a main street lined with brick storefronts and a farmer's market buzzing with early risers. We wandered through the stalls, the air thick with the smell of fresh bread and roasted nuts. I stopped at a flower vendor and picked up a small potted lavender plant, its purple blooms bright against the green. "For you," I said, handing it to Marin. "Matches your porch." She looked surprised, then smiled, fingers brushing the leaves. "You and your plants," she said, shaking her head. "You're going to turn my house into a jungle." "Only the good kind," I said, and she laughed, pulling a cookie from her bag and offering it to me. It was oatmeal raisin, still warm from her baking, and I took a bite, savoring the sweetness. "These are dangerous," I said. "You could sell these for a fortune." She shrugged, but her eyes lit up. "Maybe I'll open a bakery again someday. I've been thinking about it. Yoga too. I miss it, you know? Feeling alive." I nodded, watching her as we walked. "You should. You've got something special, Marin. People would line up for your classes, your cookies, everything." She glanced at me, expression soft but guarded. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not," I said, "but you're not someone who backs down from hard things." We kept walking, passing stalls with apples, handmade scarves, and jars of honey. The market was alive, kids running around, vendors calling out deals. I started to think maybe this could be a good day, maybe even a great one. Then Marin stopped short. A woman waved at her from a nearby stall, her face familiar in a way that made Marin tense up. "Marin. Oh my gosh, it's been forever." The woman, maybe in her late 30s, hurried over, her scarf fluttering in the breeze. She had that calm yoga teacher vibe, all serene energy and big earrings. "What are you doing here?" "Hey Lisa," Marin said, her smile tight. "Just here for the fair. It got postponed." Lisa's eyes flicked to me, curious. "And this is?" I jumped in, sensing Marin's discomfort. "Eli." "Just her neighbor helping with some deliveries." I flashed a grin, hoping to keep it light. Lisa raised an eyebrow, looking between us. "Neighbor, huh? You two look cozy. New boyfriend?" Marin's face went red and she laughed a little too loud. No, just neighbors. Eli's been a big help, that's all." I nodded, but the word cozy stuck with me and I could tell it hit Marin hard too. Lisa didn't push, just smiled and said, "Well, you look happy, Marin. It's good to see you out." She hugged Marin and wandered off, leaving us in an awkward bubble of silence. We started walking again, but Marin was quieter now, fingers fidgeting with the lavender pot. Sorry about that, she said finally. Lisa's from my old yoga group. She's nosy. No worries, I said, keeping my tone easy. People talk. Doesn't mean anything. She looked at me, her eyes searching. Doesn't it? Marin said quietly. People see us together and they'll start thinking things about us, about the age difference. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Let them think what they want. I'm here because I want to be with you, not because of what anyone else says. She held my gaze, her expression softening. You make me want to believe in things again, Eli. Like maybe I'm not too old to start over. You're not, I said, my voice steady. You're just getting started. She smiled, a real one, and reached into her bag, pulling out another cookie. Here, she said, handing it to me. Our fingers brushed, and neither of us pulled away right away. The touch was small, but it sent a jolt through me, like last night when our hands had grazed. I could see it in her eyes too, she felt it. Want to see the river? She asked suddenly, her voice lighter. There's a spot nearby. We've got time before the fair. Lead the way, I said, pocketing the cookie. We walked to a quiet spot by the river, the water glinting gold in the late afternoon sun. The air was cool, smelling of pine and damp earth. We stood side by side, watching the current ripple. Marin's dress fluttered in the breeze, and I couldn't help but notice how the light caught her hair, making it glow. She looked at me, her eyes warm but uncertain. I don't know what I'm doing, Eli, she said softly. This isn't what I expected. You don't have to know, I said, stepping closer. Just keep walking with me. That's enough. She nodded, and I reached for her hand, my fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away, letting our hands link, her skin warm against mine. We stood there, the river flowing beside us, the world quiet except for the soft rush of water. You coming to the fair with me? I asked, my voice low, almost afraid to break the moment. She smiled, squeezing my hand. If you save me some of those cookies, I laughed, and we started back toward the inn, our hands still linked, the lavender plant tucked under her arm. The sun was dipping lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I didn't know what was next, but standing there with Marin, her hand in mine, I felt something settle in my chest. Something real, something worth holding on to. The morning of the fair was crisp, the kind of Appalachian fall day where the air smells like leaves and promise. Marin and I got to the fairgrounds early, the sun just starting to warm the rows of tents and stalls. We set up our booth together, a patchwork of my pottery mugs, bowls, little vases with wonky edges, and her trays of oatmeal raisin cookies, neatly stacked in wicker baskets. The fair was alive with color, bright banners, kids chasing balloons, vendors calling out to early birds. I felt a buzz in my chest, not just from the crowd but from standing next to Marin, her sleeve brushing mine as we arranged the table. You're going to sell out of these cookies before noon, I said, nudging her as she fussed with a basket. She grinned, adjusting a sign that read Marin's homemade treats. And you're going to break a vase if you keep bumping into things, she teased, pointing at a wobbly mug I'd nearly knocked over. Hey, I'm graceful, I said, striking a mock pose. She laughed loud and unguarded, her head tilting back. It was the first time I'd seen her let go like that, no trace of the sadness that usually clung to her. Her hair caught the sunlight, and for a second I forgot what I was doing, just watching her. We fell into a rhythm, joking as we set up. I handed her price tags. She passed me cookies to sample for quality control. You're eating my profits, she said, swatting my hand as I reached for another. Worth it, I said, mouth full. She rolled her eyes, but her smile didn't fade. The fair started filling up. People drifted by, picking up mugs, sniffing cookies. We took turns talking to customers, her charm pulling them in, my grin keeping them there. It felt like we were a team, like we'd done this 100 times. Then I noticed a few glances, not the usual nice pottery looks, but curious, lingering ones. A couple of women whispered to each other, eyeing us from a nearby stall. I didn't think much of it until Lisa, Marin's yoga friend from the market, showed up. She was all smiles, but her eyes darted between us like she was piecing together a puzzle. Marin, Lisa said, this setup is adorable. She picked up a cookie. You and Eli make quite the pair. Marin's smile tightened just a fraction. Thanks, Lisa. We're just helping each other out. Oh, come on, Lisa teased. You two look like you've been running this booth forever. Neighbors, huh? She winked at me and I felt my face heat up. Just good neighbors, I said, keeping my tone light. But I could see Marin's shoulders stiffen. Lisa didn't push, just bought a cookie and left. But the air felt different after that. People kept stealing glances and I caught bits of whispers. The yoga instructor, that young guy, like we were characters in some neighborhood story they were spinning. Marin grew quieter as the morning went on, focusing on customers, but her eyes often drifted distant. When we hit a slow moment, I leaned close, lowering my voice. "You okay?" She nodded, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just people talk, Eli," she said softly. "They see us together and they think things." "Let them," I said, stepping closer. "They want to spin their stories." "Fine. But you're the one I want here with me." Her gaze locked onto mine, wide and searching, as if trying to believe it. "You don't know what it's like," she murmured. "People judging, whispering. I've been through it before." I wanted to ask more, but a customer interrupted, asking about a mug. We got back to work, but her words stayed with me. The fair kept us busy. Marin's cookies flew off the table. My pottery sold okay, but every time I glanced at her, I saw that flicker of worry. Around noon we took a break, sitting behind the booth on folding chairs. I handed her a bottle of water, she passed me a cookie. Our hands brushed just like last night. That small spark felt heavier now, like we both knew it meant something. The fair hummed around us, but for that moment, it was just us, warm air thick with sugar and clay. I meant what I said, I told her, voice steady. "I don't care what people think. I'm here because I want to be with you." She looked down at the water bottle, fingers tightening around it. "Eli, I've liked you since that night, from the very start. But I'm scared. I'm older. People will talk. I don't want you to regret this." "I won't," I said, leaning closer. "I've been thinking about you since I helped with that lantern stand on your porch. I was scared you'd think I'm just some kid, not worth your time." Her lips parted, surprise flickering in her eyes. "You're not just some kid," she whispered. You make me feel like I can breathe again." I didn't know what to say, so I reached for her hand, curling my fingers around hers. She didn't pull away, her thumb brushed mine, and for a moment the world around us faded. Then a sharp click broke the spell. I turned and saw a woman at a nearby stall, her phone aimed at us, a smirk playing on her lips. "Cute moment," she said like it was a joke. Marin's hand slipped from mine, her face paling. "Great," she muttered, rubbing her temples. "That'll be all over town by tonight." "Let it," I said, though my stomach twisted. I didn't care about the gossip, but I could see it was hitting her hard. "Marin, we don't owe anyone an explanation," I said. She nodded, eyes distant again. "I know. It's just, I dated someone younger once, years ago. My friends, my family never let me forget it. Said it was a mistake, that he'd leave when he grew up." A pang of something sharp, anger maybe, hit me. I wanted to protect her. "I'm not him," I said. "And I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." Her eyes softened, a small smile breaking through. "You make it sound so simple." "It is," I said, grinning. "We keep doing this. You bring the cookies. I bring the pottery. The rest is just noise." She laughed, a real clear laugh, and it felt like a win. "Okay," she said. "Let's keep it just between us for now. Just us." "Deal?" I said. We went back to the booth, the air lighter but still charged with something new. The fair wound down as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the stalls. We packed what was left, fewer cookies than expected, a couple of vases sold. As I folded up the tablecloth, something crinkled in my pocket. I pulled out a folded piece of paper, Marin's handwriting, neat and small. "Thank you for making me feel alive again." My heart skipped. I looked up, catching her eye as she stacked her baskets. She didn't say a word, just smiled, like she knew I'd found it. I tucked the note back in my pocket, feeling it burn, a quiet promise. We loaded the truck, the sky streaked pink and gold. I drove us back to the inn, my hand resting on the console, close enough to reach for hers. Neither of us spoke, but the silence felt warm, filled with everything we weren't ready to say yet. At the door she paused. "You coming by the pottery shop sometime?" I asked, leaning against the truck. Her smile was soft in the fading light. "If you save me some jasmine." I grinned, watching her step inside, the door clicking softly behind her. I stood there a moment longer, the note still in my pocket, the glow from the inn spilling onto the gravel. The fair was over, but something else was just beginning. And for now, with her words in my hand, I knew I didn't want it to end. The drive back to town was quiet. Not the awkward kind, but the kind where you don't need words to fill the space. Marin sat in the passenger seat, her canvas tucked at her feet, the little lavender plant I'd given her cradled in her lap. The truck smelled like cookies and clay, a mix that was starting to feel like us. The fair had been a whirlwind. Sold out cookies, a few pottery sales, and that moment behind the booth when Marin's hand stayed in mine. Her note was still in my pocket, the words, "Thank you for making me feel alive again," burning a hole in my thoughts. I didn't know what we were yet, but I knew I didn't want to lose this. Back in town, life slipped into a new rhythm. I saw Marin most days, but we kept it low-key, like we were both testing the waters. I'd stop by her place after work, helping with small things, hanging a new lantern on her porch, fixing a wobbly chair, watering her jasmine plants when she forgot. She'd show up at the pottery shop sometimes, bringing a tin of cookies or just sitting quietly in the corner watching me shape clay on the wheel. We didn't call it dating. We didn't put a name on it. It was just us sharing pieces of our days. One evening, I was at her place, hammering nails into a new shelf for her books. She handed me a glass of iced tea, her fingers brushing mine. "You're going to turn my house into a showroom," she said, her voice light but her eyes warm. "Only if you keep making cookies," I shot back, grinning. "I'm running out of shelf space for those tins you leave at the shop." She laughed, sitting on the porch steps, her dress pooling around her. "Deal? But you're eating half my inventory, Eli." We watched the sunset, the sky turning soft shades of pink and gold. It was moments like these, quiet, simple, that made me feel like I'd stumbled into something bigger than I'd planned. We'd watch old movies on her couch, arguing over whether The Breakfast Club was overrated, or take walks through the neighborhood pointing out houses with the best gardens. It felt easy. But there was an undercurrent, like we were both waiting for the other to say what this was. The rumors from the fair didn't stay at the fair. I started noticing looks at the shop, customers whispering, neighbors raising eyebrows when they saw us together. One afternoon, I was unloading clay when Mrs. Harper, the old lady down the street, pulled me aside. "You and Marin seem close," she said, half curious, half warning. "Just be careful, Eli. People talk." I nodded, keeping my smile polite. "Thanks, Mrs. Harper. We're just friends." But we weren't, not really, and I knew Marin felt it too. The next day, she told me about a call from another friend, someone from her old yoga days in Atlanta. She'd heard about us. Marin's voice was tight as we sat on her porch. Said I should stick to my own age. Like I'm making some kind of mistake. I set down the hammer I'd been using to fix her railing. "You're not. And neither am I. People can say what they want, Marin. Doesn't change how I feel." She looked at me, her eyes searching, like she was trying to find a crack in what I'd said. "And how do you feel, Eli?" I swallowed hard, my heart thumping. "I want to keep doing this, with you. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks." She didn't answer right away, just sipped her tea, her fingers tight around the glass. "I want that too," she said finally, her voice soft. "But I'm scared. I've been burned before. I don't want you waking up one day regretting this." "I won't," I said, stepping closer. "I'm not some kid chasing a thrill. I'm here because you make me feel like I'm home." Her eyes softened and she reached out her hand, resting it on mine. "You make me feel that too." I wanted to say more, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled a small potted jasmine from my bag, one I'd been saving at the shop. "For you," I said, setting it on the porch. "If you want, I'll plant a whole garden of these for you." She laughed, a sound that warmed the air. "You're going to bury me in flowers, Eli?" "Only the good ones," I said. We both smiled, the weight of the conversation lifting. Marin started teaching yoga again, just a small class at the community center. She'd come back from sessions glowing, telling me about students who reminded her why she loved it. I could see her coming back to herself, piece by piece. It made me want to be better too. I started sketching plans for a pottery studio. Nothing fancy, just a shed with a kiln and space to teach. Marin would sit with me at the shop, flipping through my drawings, offering ideas. "You need a window here," she'd say, pointing. "Let the light in." And I'd nod, knowing she wasn't just talking about the studio. One evening, I convinced her to come with me to the river, the same spot we'd stood at before the fair. The air was cool, the water catching the last of the sunset's glow. We walked along the bank, our shoes crunching on the gravel, our hands brushing but not quite holding. I wanted to grab hers, but I waited, letting her set the pace. "I don't promise big things, Eli," she said, suddenly stopping to face the water. "I don't know what this is or what it'll be, but I want to be here with you." My chest tightened and I stepped closer, taking her hand. "Then stay here," I said. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait for you every day if I have to." She looked at me, her eyes bright, a smile tugging at her lips. "You're too good, you know that." "Nah," I said, grinning. "Just good enough for you." We stood there, hand in hand, the river flowing steady beside us. The wind tugged at her hair, and I brushed a strand from her face, my fingers lingering. She didn't pull away, just leaned into the touch. And for a moment, the world was just us. Back home life kept moving. I'd find cookies on my porch some mornings wrapped in wax paper with a little note. Don't eat them all at once. I'd bring her plants, leaving them by her door, a rosemary sprig, a tiny fern. We didn't talk about the future, not in big terms. No rings, no plans. Just the quiet choice to keep showing up. One morning I found a single cookie on my kitchen table, left there after Marin had stopped by the night before. Tucked under it was a note in her neat handwriting. My pottery guy, thank you for bringing me back to life. I read it twice, my heart skipping. It always did with her. I folded the note, slipped it into my pocket next to the one from the fair and stepped outside. Her house was across the street, the porch light glowing, jasmine blooming along the railing. I could see her through the window moving through a yoga pose, her silhouette steady and sure. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or if the whispers in town would ever stop. I didn't know if we'd ever put a name to what we had, or if we'd need to. But standing there, the note warm in my pocket, I knew one thing. Maybe we weren't ready for forever, but we were real. And for now that was enough.